So I have a very hard role because I'm in between you and lunch, and I have 40 slides to go with 28 minutes, and we are already 15 or 20 minutes behind.
But I promise that you have at least 5-6 minutes more. Don't.
Good. Thank you so much. So my relationship with museums began in 2009 when I was invited to do the exhibition of Seaplane Harbour in Tallinn, the Maritime Museum. So within 3 years we managed to create the exhibition. Then I was 3 years the director of the museum, most probably being one of the youngest museum directors in Estonia. And at the same time we did with the team the Tallinn TV tower, renovated the building and did the new exhibition. And after a period of museums, I worked 3 years in Visit Estonia, the National Tourist Board, as a marketing director. And now, since the beginning of last month, I'm back in museums where my heart belongs. And this is a wonderful area. One of the reasons why I love museums is because it's so much innovation and it's so much young people, but not only young people, but so much people who are willing to change and are so open. Maybe I'm blind, but this is one of the reasons why I love this field. So I'm going to talk a little bit what I think about museums. This is my personal experience. I will give you one example, which is based on Seaplane Harbour, and I will very briefly go over what I think of the future of the museums. So 40 slides still to go, 26 minutes. Good. The company that I'm running at the moment is called Motor, but it's nothing concerned with cars. We are a full production company of making the exhibitions. So we do the design, but we also do the production. And if necessary, we also do the maintenance. The company have won several awards in Estonia, 3 times being the best, creating the best museums in Estonia. And also having the most prestigious prize in Europe, which is the European Museum of the Year Special Prize a couple of years ago. So we do have a little experience. And there is a saying that one picture is more than 100 words, and to rephrase it is that one video is more than 100 pictures. So I have here a couple of videos what we do. So are museums dead? No, the simple answer is no. But Museums are a building or place where works of art, scientific specimens, or other objects of permanent value are kept and displayed. This is the definition that I found from the dictionary.com about the museums. And my question would be, is that all? Is that all what we think of museums? That museum is a collection of something and sometimes it's displayed? No, I don't think it is all. I think that the role of the museums nowadays is much, much more. And here is a little scheme which I'm going to give you now examples why I think that the role of museums is absolutely wider than this very boring definition. So first of all, if we take the heritage side, I think that what museums can do, or what is the benefit, is that they could transform the historic buildings, the heritage, into unique landmarks. This is the building of, anybody knows? I heard, I think. It's a Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and they have been there for ages. But recently they went through the renovation process, so they renovated the building. The building itself was renovated, was kept as a heritage, but at the same time they gave it a new function. So I think that is a nice way to use the heritage, put a new function in it, and use it like through something new. So combining the heritage values, the buildings, and transforming and putting a new function in it. The second thing is the cultural identity. This is the building of Tartu, exactly, the new National Museum of Estonia. Well, it costed so much. And there was so huge debates whether we need this or not. Should we invest millions of euros in the building? But one of the key missions of the museum is to raise the self-respect of Estonians and to raise the self-esteem of Estonians. And I think that this building, with its size, of course, but moreover with the content that is inside it, will definitely create the cultural identity, creates the pride, the proudness, and also teach the value system. So it's not just seeing the collection, it's like understanding the values behind that. And the next topic has been discussed in the previous presentations, and maybe it's something that we can call partly the Museum 3.0, which is that the museum has become a platform in society by asking questions. So don't give just firm facts and firm conclusions, but rather give a facts and let the interpretation and let the thinking going on. So this is a picture from the museum in Liverpool, the National Museum in Liverpool. They have dedicated a space and an exhibition for the slavery. Quite a hard topic, I think, for Brits to talk about slavery, being a country that has been, well, conquering a lot of countries. So they do it very, very well, and they give the platform for discussions, for asking questions, sometimes intriguing. And I think that one of the things that I have really advocated in Estonia as well is to advocate museums to be more intriguing, to ask those questions more persuasive, more like not to be so polite sometimes, but to be more open and to ask those tough questions. Because some of the things that has happened in the history are happening nowadays as well. Of course, museums are a very strong part of the tourism. They are one of the reasons, if you look at the TripAdvisor, museums are very often one of the top things to do in the city, to visit the destination. The recent study, that was an American study actually, showed that the cultural tourists spend more than 50% more than regular leisure tourists. So those who are willing to visit the cultural heritage, willing to visit the museums, tend to spend more than just an ordinary tourist. That's good for us. And museums definitely play a huge role in that. So museums has become a place where people spend their free times and with families. And this has been bringing the families into the museums and has been in Estonia one of the key drivers for creating a new museums. That we think that the families, not just that the children themselves, especially, but the families, the children together with the parents, are the main target group. And if you say that the children are the main target group, then you start to think of how to create a museum that is different from maybe kind of a more traditional museum. So families spend their time. Museums has become a social place. I remember the Tate Museum in London saying that what they see in the museum is that friends, especially females, the women tend to come to the museum instead of going to cafeterias. So instead of meeting each other in cafeterias, they come to the museum, chit-chat as the women do, but at the same time looking the galleries, looking the art, maybe having a nice discussion that they wouldn't have. So museum has become a different place, not just to be quiet there, but still to come with your friends, maybe not on a weekends go to cafeteria, but rather to museum. Museums are a very strong part of the education, and maybe I would like to draw your, I think it's nothing new, but I would like to draw your attention that how museums are working so heavily with disabled people and with giving the educational side to the disabled people. Last week we had a nice conference in Berlin called Museum Next. And a museum in Netherlands, Van Abbe Museum, told that they have a robot. So you have a robot in the museum, and then you have a control joystick at your home for disabled people, those that cannot come to the museum. So at your home, you could drive the robot in the museum and see how the museum looks like, and you will have a museum staff who will introduce you the museum. So you will see through your screen. You are not able to come to the museum, but you could experience the museum. So education and the museums are part of the curriculum. I think it's kind of a must-be. Now, a very nice thing is the economy side. The Rijksmuseum, the same museum that was in the picture before, they launched a project called Rijksstudio a couple of years ago, and the aim of the project was to open and digitalize their collections, and using their collections is free of charge for everybody, also for the companies. And what of the companies have done? One of the dairy companies have used a very famous picture on their milk product. So enriching this very boring milk. There was another example from Copenhagen where the building construction companies have used the art to decorate the spaces where they are building the site. So you have to put some fences around. So how to make the fences more beautiful? Use art. On the right side, you see the picture also from the same project. So the Rijksmuseum is doing each year a competition where they call different artists to use the art to create a new products. So you see on the left side, on the middle side, you see the original piece of art, and on the right side you see that the sleeping mask out of that, and that was also one of the winners last year. So museums and their collections are inspiring in economy and used by the economy to sell more or to differentiate your products. One of the last thing is the real estate development, so how museums have helped to recreate desert lands. This is an example of Bilbao. I think most of you have heard what museums can do to develop the area or the some of the area. So why I'm talking about this is a very simple reason, and this is money. So if you think that you do have just your collections and you do the display, it's hardly to convince people why to invest in museums. But if you start to think of more visitors' mind and more impact-based, so what the museums could do, what is the larger scale impact, it's much more easier to convince why to invest in museums, why to invest in cultural heritage and cultural field. So now I'm giving you the example of Seaplane Harbor. Maybe some of you has been there. Okay, I see a couple of hands. Oh, raising, good, that's good. So for those who haven't been there, I'm going to show you a small video of what the museum is. The building where the museum is a historical building. This is a picture in 20s. It's a tremendous building. It has 8,000 square meters. Was built part of the Peter's the Great fortification system in 1916, 1917, when we started the project 10 years ago, the museum looked like this. So it was abandoned for several years. It was in the edge of collapsing, and our dear Finnish colleagues said, especially the engineers, said that don't bother of renovating. It is not possible anymore, just wait a couple of years, it will collapse, then you have a nice ruins, blah, blah, blah. We said no. At the same time, the Maritime Museum was looking for a new space where to expand their museum, where to put the submarine. And I love when the plan comes together, as Hannibal Smith in the 18 once said. It was a nice mixture when where we had the historical building, the heritage building, which needed to be restored, and then we had the museum with its needs, and it came together. So we started to create a new maritime museum in this seaplane harbor. The building was really, as I said, in a really bad shape. But we had a dream to create a museum that is exciting, interesting, and where the families want to return it. And within several years, in 2012, we opened this museum. And since the very beginning, it was a success. In the first year we had, which was like 7-8 months, we had 250,000 visitors. And then next year we had more than 300,000 visitors, which is relatively big amount of, if we consider the number of population that Estonia has. So this was the kind of a nice way how we created the museums. Here's a couple of pictures. But I want to stress two things if I look that period backwards and if I think what is the impact of it. And I think one of the key impacts is that we have really changed the perception of what the museum is. This is not only the Maritime Museum, not the Seaplane Harbor, but I think it has played a great role in that story. Museums tend to be very boring places, as you see in the picture. But now the museums in Estonia has become places where you spend your free time. So I've said that one of my missions, why I deal with the museums, has been to bring the families from the shopping centers to museums. Well, I must admit that the shopping centers are very good in fighting against it because they are thinking also so much about entertainment, how to keep the visitors in the museum throughout the weekend or throughout the day. But the museums has really changed how they do their museums. And this is also seen in the statistics how popular museums are. If you don't know, I think I have a slide also. Another thing is the real estate development. Here is a couple of pictures from 2009. So you see from the pictures that the whole area around the museum was a desert area. It's a seaside of Tallinn, which used to be closed for centuries, not only in the Soviet time, for a longer period. And nobody went there. And even it was considered a bit of criminal area. And when we opened the museum, there were so much questions that, people cannot find it, they are not able to come there. And that was true. It was just a thing in a desert point. Yesterday, I took a drive and I made a couple of pictures how it looks at the moment. So the very close nearby area is full of real estate development. These buildings, the living buildings are just next to the museum. There is a new road. You could see the new road. And that has happened in the last 3-4 years. So the real estate developers has discovered this area, and the real estate prices are so high that you can't believe that. And this has become kind of a posh region where you say that you are living there, then you are perceived, well, you are a well-off person. I don't live there. So you are kind of a well-off person if you live there. You're a trendy person. And we see that next to the museum, they are building office facilities for the European IT agency. Don't ask what it is. It's something important. So we see that this museum has really kind of launched or giving a kickoff for the real estate development. And there is many of such examples throughout the world. So it's not just one museum, but why I talk those two things is what has been the impact of this museum. And we see that I just looked out of curiosity, I looked the statistics of the visitor numbers to the museums, and well, in last years, Latvia has really increased the number of museum visits. It's interesting to see that if we look at the visitor numbers, then in Estonia it's more museums. In Latvia it's more like castles and castle parks. So this is a little bit different story. But if you aggregate the numbers, then you got it. And we together are one of them. If we take that, how much visits per 1,000 inhabitants, or we take also into consideration the number of population, then Estonia is number 1st in Europe, and I think that Latvia is among top 5. So we are really museum people. So, a couple of words where I believe that the museums are going. So museums are moving out. This is a recent picture from Schiphol Airport, where I'm like a Rijksmuseum today, where the Rijksmuseum has done a baggage claim. So they have opened a new kind of a pop-up museum in airport, very boring to wait your luggage. So they have enriched this experience with art. And there is so many examples. I had a conversation with the Museum of Toronto. It's a city museum in Toronto, and believe it or not, but they don't have a collection and they don't have a house. So what they do is they do only pop-up museums in Toronto, and if they want to exhibit something, the artifacts, then they borrow it from private or from the other museums. So Museum of Toronto does not have a house and does not have a collection themselves. Was kind of Toronto, quite a big city. So museums are really moving out of their initial space. Technology shapes the reality. I think one of the most famous photos of when the Pope was inaugurated in Rome, 2005 and 2013, you see that the technology has really shaped how the museums has to behave. Think of the virtual reality, what the virtual reality can do. Couple of months ago, there was a project where there was an art exhibition about Gauguin. And what they did was the VR virtual reality experience that was titled the virtual reality trip in Gauguin's mind to Tahiti. So you put on the virtual glasses, Oculus, whatever, and you could be like Gauguin experiencing the Tahiti. Think of if you have a castle or if you have a countryside place, what you could do with virtual reality, creating a historical past or creating the future. It's amazing what you could do with technology. I think that the technology doesn't have to be the aim, but it has to help to do something. But it really it shapes what it is. And I think that how we use the technology, like how we use the Facebook or how we use the Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, has also, like the browsing, has also shaped how we browse the museums. So think of that connection, how technology shapes the reality. Museums has really become the edutainment centers. So putting together the entertainment part and the education part, using their collections, using the way of interpretation. So the museums and science centers are coming closer and closer to each other. The personalization, people are looking personal experiences, so they really want that there is something that is unique for them. So think of a museum where you could maybe switch the lighting which you like, or you could say that, okay, please give me the information about the exhibit when I'm 80 years old or when I'm 18 years old. So you could really differentiate the experience upon who you are. And of course, every everyone in the museum field is talking about financial cuts. So actually what it means that the museum has to think of how to earn money themselves. So what we did in Seaplane Harbor, we roughly earned, or Maritime Museum, we roughly earned half of the budget ourselves with ticket income, with cafeteria, with shop, and half came from state. And this is the reality what every cultural institution, I think, has to face, and has to kind of understand that and take actions. So I strongly believe that the museums can be and are key players in developing this sustainable, smart and balanced tourism. And in the previous talks you have heard the examples of Dubrovnik or the Barcelona or Venice. But I think that the museums are key players against that kind of a trivial tourism if you do it wisely. Thanks.
Thanks for a good presentation, and I see that the faces are not too depressive that museums should die. So we found at least 5 directions to good solutions. One question, and then the commentary from the audience. The question about, we have in Latvia and the same in Baltics or wider, there are the small museums which are devoted to some personalities, and those memorial museums. And some are saying that, oh, this is good, the museum deals with fantastic thematics, you can do a lot of things there, a lot of public engagement, but those are mostly small museums in size and in budgets. And what would be your suggestion for them to be maybe more attractive and not just stay as kind of memento mori places where you just go with exceptional interest? So you know that segment of the museums.
I think I should use the microphone. Well, yes. I think that the first thing that you need to do is to really decide what you want. If you want to be a museum, kind of a small museum that is existing, keeping its collection, keeping its memorial alive, that's fine. It's okay. But if you want to be a visitor-centered museum, there is so many things to do, so many examples throughout the world to do. So there is nothing to kind of a secret recipe to give to that or to that. But I think that the starting point is making really the decision who you want to be, what sort of museum you want to be. And there is not right or wrong answer.
I mean, is it fine that we say, okay, this is like 600 visitors per year, which is a small amount, and we leave it. It's not a part of big tourism. This is just like that, because it's kind of cultural heritage. So not everything should be the tourism.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If the taxpayers want to pay for that, that's fine. But
they don't. But
well, then it has to be closed. When there is no money that comes, then these places has to kind of reshape. And obviously the problem in Estonia has been that there has been so many small museums. So what to do with them? One of the things that I think that we should also think of, giving the museums back to the communities, giving the museums back to maybe a private owners. So if there is a local community initiative, if there is a private initiative, and there is somebody willing to really put their money inside it, and this is kind of a co-finance. So I believe very much this public-private partnership. So if there is a local community wishing to pay for something, some private persons, then I think that the public authorities should also invest. But if it's only just, public, then no.
We see from the audience, one person is missing. Usually there were 40, so please vote. We need your voice. Yeah, thanks. 8. This is quite optimistic.
What's the question?
The question is about, what do you think? How attractive, as ambassadors of cultural heritage, are the museums for tourists? So it's not...
Why it's not 10?
Probably one is thinking 10, but you see nobody thinks 0, and there are maybe a lot of experiences. We are still here in this segment. Those are the places which are interesting, so they are attractive. And of course you talked a lot about the future challenges, how to make it even more attractive. That's Probably you can comment on that. It's too optimistic. Will it stay like that?
I'm the person who would vote 9 or 10.
Good. So let's discuss about that in lunch.